Hey beautiful internet nerds, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about the things that I learned from my time with my really awful first DM. If you haven't seen the video that I made about it, talking about the full story, it'll be popping up in the cards right now, so just pause this one, go watch that one, takes about 20 minutes, and then you'll understand the context for the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video. So in that video, I talked about 5 different things that were a problem, and I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into each one and talk about what I have done to make sure that I don't fall into those same traps and sort of my failings in contributing to those at the time and what you guys as both dungeon masters and players can do to resolve these things. First of all, he kind of bad-mouthed his wife's ability and then stole the game from her. So I think this is kind of 2 problems in one. Control and compassion. Some of you watching this video have had the experience of playing with a brand new dungeon master. Sometimes when you know how the rules work and they don't, it's a little bit hard to keep silent. Last summer, my husband decided that he wanted to run a short campaign. We played 6 different sessions. We started at level 15 and we leveled up at the end of every single one. So the last game we were level 20 and we had a really big boss fight. And it was fun. It was. I had not had the chance to play in a while, so it was really fun to have a character that I could play and kind of get into. My husband knows more about the rules of 5e than I do. And the story was really cool. I really liked it. But it was the first time that my husband had ever run a game or a set of games. And there were some times where he would forget a rule, or maybe his call on some event or something wasn't one that I exactly agreed with. And in those times, it was kind of hard for me to stay silent. In those moments, it's hard not to think I would do it differently. And on really bad nights, it's hard not to think I would do it better. Maybe I'm more judgmental than a lot of people, but I feel like that's fairly relatable, right? Armchair ref is a term for a reason. And when you add in the possibility that you actually could step in and make things better, I'm sure the temptation to do so is always there. Not to say that if a dungeon master is struggling with a particular ruling, that you should never ever give your advice. You can always find the rule in the rule book, and if you're pretty sure that they're wrong, it is okay to object. However, the DM has the final say. Always. Accept it. Another thing is compassion. This isn't a simple game. Tabletop RPGs are pretty complex. 5e, for all that it is simplified from other previous editions, is still pretty complex. The rule books have hundreds of pages. At any moment when playing a tabletop RPG, your character can choose from literally an infinite list of options. Of course, you're never going to pick the right one. The best option, the right option, doesn't exist. What's your favorite D&D show? Is it Dimension 20, Oxventurers, The Adventure Zone, Not Another D&D Podcast, Dice Camera Action, Critical Role? These shows are popular. They're entertaining. They're awesome. Matt Mercer, Matt Colville, Chris Perkins, they are world-renowned DMs. And they still get so much hate for the way that they run their games. And the players in their games get a lot of flack from people for the different choices that they make. No matter how good someone's character choice is, someone is always going to dislike it. So why bag on people who don't even have experience? It really was so uncomfortable to hear this guy break in on his wife trying to describe a location or an event. So you see some short half walls that no, that's not what it's like. Oh, you want to throw your warhammer.
No.
Oh,
No,
the,
he can't do
um,
that. No, excuse me. No, he can't do that.
really hope you could actually see my face in that shot. D&D doesn't have to be perfect. If letting one rule slide so that the mood around the table is more positive, do it. We don't want to discourage people from playing and force them out of the hobby by being nasty. If you really feel like you have to correct them, if the problem is that egregious, do it with kindness. And don't just hijack the game from someone. Who does that? He had a DMPC that was basically the main character. So what qualifies as a DMPC? A Dungeon Master player character. The DM pretty much plays every character that the players don't. So what is the difference between a DMPC and an NPC? Is it just that a DMPC stays with the party forever? Is that in and of itself a problem? During my short time running campaigns, I had a player whose character was afraid of girls. He was this rough, tough Goliath barbarian who wanted to avenge the murder of his dad and go free his mom from the chieftain of his tribe who was really tyrannical, and he was, an intense sort of guy. But he told me that his weak spot was girls and that they made him really nervous. And I instantly knew that this is something that I'm gonna poke at. So, pretty much within that day, I created this NPC character who was a Goliath monk, and she was fun, and she was independent, and she was really competitive. Basically, a perfect match slash torture device for this specific character. I was really excited. I thought there was going to be some good character development, some good role playing out of it. I thought it was going to be really fun. She came into the picture several months into the campaign. It was one of those typical underground fighting rings in a tavern. There was a bit of chit chat before and after the brawl, and immediately the whole group wanted to bring her along everywhere they went. At first, I was excited. I'd get to poke and play at this guy's character flaw and have some fun roleplay moments with the rest of the group. But then I remembered The Chosen One and Princess Anime, and I was all, am I about to become what I so despised? I did a few things to really steer away from that. One of the biggest things was that in group situations, she was really quiet. The character is pretty outspoken and fun, but if there was a serious moment of roleplay between characters, like if one of them was talking about a painful moment of their backstory or some fear that they had about something coming up, she wouldn't speak up hardly at all. And the same definitely applied to when they were making plans. A big problem with DMPCs is that they can see what's coming because they're inside the DM's head. So when they were making plans of how are they going to break into this house, how are they going to foil the bad guy's plans, she would offer no new suggestions, but she would occasionally play devil's advocate. In combat, I wouldn't describe her actions in nearly as much detail as I did with anyone else. Okay, she is gonna attack twice. So she rolls. Okay, she hits once but misses the other one and deals 10 points of damage. Alright, that's her done. Your turn. I don't think that having a longer term NPC, one who actually travels with the party for a while, is necessarily a problem. I don't think that it should be truly permanent, but that might be more of a personal preference. If the people around the table are comfortable with it, it's probably fine. It's just a little unfair when the NPC starts edging out the actual players. He invalidated or removed the choices of the players. This one is perhaps the most important one. It's the one that can easily creep up over time. It goes back to that control aspect we were talking about before. When DMs start planning new campaigns, they generally have some font of inspiration or theme in mind. It could be based on an anime, could be based on a book, could be based on a video game. Maybe it's dark fantasy, gruesome horror, maybe it's a little goofy, maybe it's a lot of political intrigue. There's usually something. When you have these plans in mind, it is really hard when your players start to go against them. And when you're the end-all be-all of the game, it can be really easy to become a tyrant. One of your players made a character named Billy Bob McTractor for your super dark Call of Cthulhu game. It's really tempting to box them out and stop writing story hooks for them or stop giving them items. Maybe you really like your villain and you worked really hard to make him really complex and have these wonderful plans, but your characters find him out before he has time to put them into action. It's really hard to let him die before his time. I honestly struggle with this a lot sometimes. I take myself too seriously and I want to have these epic moments, these amazing reveals, and these complex twists in the storyline. But my players, whenever they find the flaws in my plans, of which there are many, it's really hard for me to let them get away with it, to spoil my evil plans. That is why it is so important to be humble when you're the dungeon master. It is not a game about how devious you are or how mean you can be to your players. It is a group effort. He made a 4 to 6 session tutorial arc without telling us. So having a tutorial arc in the first place is not a big problem. Some people might really appreciate it. I am not one of those people. If I tried a new sport, I wouldn't really like sitting down with the coach and have him explain to me why the ball is the color it is, or how to run, or, any number of super incredibly basic things. I would expect them to figure out my capabilities and my expectations so they know what to do with me. Similarly, when someone joins your campaign, one of the first things you should talk about is expectations. What is this game going to be like? Is it going to be more roleplay or more combat? How much do you want from the backstories of your players? How hard are the fights going to be? What's the overall tone of the game? Communication is key. I like to be in regular contact with my players. It might be a little bit more frequent than is necessary, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page with what's going on and what they are thinking about the game. This goes for players as well. Please be honest with your co-players how you're feeling about the game, because there is nothing worse than playing for months and then finding out that everyone has been hating the game. If it's a little hard to have those conversations face to face, totally send them a text or an email or a message on Discord or a smoke signal, just something to get your opinion across so that it can be taken under consideration. As to teaching your players, one thing that I feel is that it is super important to empower rather than belittle the people you're trying to teach. Letting people figure things out on their own and getting an appropriate reward after is so much more effective than having the path laid out for them really obviously or doing it for them when they struggle. I'm a mom. I do this every day. It's a hard thing. The biggest thing that will help with this is compassion. Remember when you first started playing and you had no idea how any of it worked. Be happy for their successes and patient through their struggles. He whined if we didn't play along. I mean, what do I even say about this? Grow up. If something's not going your way, fix it or get over it. Okay. I know that's not very nice, especially because I was just talking about being compassionate. So here's a little bit more of a nuanced view. You can't expect things to go your way. You just can't. You have to figure out how you're going to deal with it. Positivity will always trump negativity. Flies and honey, it's just a game. Put out good and you'll get good back. And if you don't get good back, please, please don't just turn right around and put bad back out at them. All right? Life lessons from D&D. Okay, I could rant about this for a long time, but instead I'm going to admit my failings on this particular thing. When I first started playing with this group, I had just come from binging hours and hours and hours of Critical Role, and I had these really high expectations. I was hoping to have a super fulfilling story with complex characters and epic battles, emotional moments, tears. That is a lot of pressure. In my current campaign, all of the other players are big fans of Critical Role too. When they gave me their character backstories, they were complex. These characters that they built had real, full lives with fears and flaws and hopes and dreams. One guy even gave me a pretty sizable family tree with descriptions of all of these people in his family. I felt a lot of pressure to make this campaign exciting and interesting and surprising to these people who were such big fans of the same thing that I was. I can understand feeling frustrated at being compared to someone like Matt Mercer, who has decades of experience not only playing D&D, but professional acting as well. So please, don't do that. Don't be me. Even if I didn't always voice my comparisons, even if I wasn't actively complaining that he didn't run things the same way that Matt would, they were in my head and they were spoiling my experience of the game. I was constantly thinking, this would be better if someone else ran it. This would be better if I ran it. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we role-playing more? Why is everybody so weird? My very next DM didn't do nearly as many of the terrible things that my first one did. He wasn't perfect, but he was definitely good. But because of my expectations and my thoughts, I was not super happy in that campaign either. The fact that I wanted a different kind of campaign, a different kind of group, a different kind of experience ruined that perfectly acceptable campaign for me. And that's no one's fault but mine. So if you can learn to be happy with what you have, you will have a blast playing with basically any group. So, looking back on this rambling mess of a video, I feel like two things kind of stand out to me: humility and compassion. Whether you are the player or the dungeon master, you are not the most important person in the group. The people around the table with you are your equals, and you should treat them that way. You should love them the way you love yourself. You should treat them the way you want them to treat you. You need to be the change that you want to see. This does sound like a series of inspirational posters and memes, but it is fact. I hope that you can have better experience than I did. I don't know whether these ramblings are helpful or not, but D&D shouldn't be a super contentious game. It should be a game where we make friends and we fight monsters together. Anyway, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, drop a like below. In the description below, you'll find links to all my different social accounts, including my Twitch channel. We are doing a weekly campaign of D&D 5e on there, and it is really fun so far. If you want to check it out or catch up, the playlist for that will be coming up right here. Over here will be another video that YouTube has picked out just for you. Isn't that so nice? And right here will be something for you to click to subscribe to the channel so you can keep updated on what we're doing. Bye!